Nor therefore were the dead honored with aught of tears or candles or funeral train. Nay, the thing was come to such a pass that folks recked no more of men that died than nowadays they would of goats, whereby it very manifestly appeared that which the natural course of things had not availed, by dint of small and infrequent harms, to teach the wise to endure with patience. The very greatness of their ills had brought even the simple to expect and make no account of. The consecrated ground sufficing not to the burial of the vast multitude of corpses aforesaid, which daily and well nigh hourly came carried in crowds to every church, especially if it were sought to give each his own place according to ancient usance, there were made throughout the churchyards, after every other part was full, vast trenches, wherein those who came after were laid by the hundred, and being heaped up therein by layers, as goods are stowed aboard ship, were covered with a little earth, till such time as they reached the top of the trench. Moreover, not to go longer searching out and recalling every particular of our past miseries as they befell throughout our city, I say that, whilst so sinister a time prevailed in the latter, on no wise, therefore, was the surrounding country spared, wherein, letting be the castles, which in their littleness were like unto the city, throughout the scattered villages and in the fields, the poor and miserable husbandmen and their families, without succor of physician or aid of servitor, died, not like men, but well nigh like beasts, by the ways or in their tillages or about the houses indifferently, by day and night, by reason whereof, growing lax, like the townsfolk in their manners and customs, they recked not of anything or business of theirs, nay, all as if they looked for death that very day, studied with all their wit, not to help to maturity the future produce of their cattle in their fields and the fruits of their own past toils, but to consume those which were ready to hand. Thus it came to pass that the oxen, the asses, the sheep, the goats, the swine, the fowls, nay, the very dogs, so faithful to mankind, being driven forth of their own houses, went straying at their pleasure about the fields, where the very corn was abandoned without being cut, much less gathered in, and many, well nigh like reasonable creatures, after grazing all day, returned at night, glutted, to their houses without the constraint of any herdsman. So sad. To leave the country and return to the city, what more could be said save that such and so great was the cruelty of heaven, and in part peradventure that of men, that between March and the following July, what with the virulence of that pestiferous sickness and the number of sick folk ill, tended, or forsaken, and their need, through the fearfulness of those who were whole, it is believed for certain that upward of 100,000 human beings perished within the walls of the city of Florence, which peradventure before the advent of that death-dealing calamity had not been accounted to hold so many. Alas, how many great palaces, how many goodly houses, how many noble mansions, once full of families, of lords and of ladies, abode empty even to the meanest servant. How many memorable families, how many ample heritages, how many famous fortunes were seen to remain without lawful heir? How many valiant men, how many fair ladies, how many sprightly youths, whom, not others only, but Galen, Hippocrates, or Aesculapius themselves, would have judged most hale, breakfasted in the morning with their kinsfolk, comrades, and friends, and that same night supped with their ancestors in the other world. I am myself weary of going wandering so long among such miseries. Wherefore, purposing henceforth to leave such part thereof as I can fitly, I say that, our city being at this pass well nigh void of inhabitants, it chanced, as I afterward heard from a person worthy of credit, that therefore gathered in the venerable church of Santa Maria Novella, one Tuesday morning, when there was well nigh none else there, 7 young ladies, all knit one to another by friendship, or neighborhood, or kinship, who had heard divine service in mourning attire, as sorted with such a season. Not one of them had passed her 28th year, 28, nor was less than 18 years old, between the ages of 18 and 28, and each was discreet and of noble blood, fair favor, and well-mannered, and full of honest sprightliness. The names of these ladies I would in proper terms set out, did not just cause forbid me to wit that I would not have it possible that, in time to come, any of them should take shame by reason of the things hereinafter related as being told or hearkened by them, the laws of disport being nowadays somewhat straitened, which at that time, for the reasons above shown, were of the largest, not only for persons of their years, but for those of a much riper age. Nor yet would I give occasion to the envious, who are still ready to carp at every praiseworthy life, on anywise to disparage the fair fame of these honorable ladies with unseemly talk. Wherefore, so that which each saith may hereafterward be apprehended without confusion, I purpose to denominate them by names altogether and impart sorting with each one's quality. So he's basically saying that he's protecting their names because he doesn't want to embarrass them by any of the stories they're telling. The first of them and her of ripest age I shall call Pampinia, the second Fiammetta, the third Philomena, and the fourth Amelia. To the fifth we will give the name of Loretta, to the sixth that of Nephile, and the last, not without cause, we will style Elisa. These, then, not drawn of any set purpose, but foregathering by chance in a corner of the church, having seated themselves in a ring, after divers size, let be the saying of paternosters, and fell to devising with one another many and various things of the nature of the time. And after a while, the others being silent, Pampinia proceeded to speak thus. Dear my ladies, you may, like myself, have many times heard that whoso honestly useth his right doth no wrong, and it is the natural right of everyone who is born here below to succor, keep and defend his own life as best he may, and in so far is this allowed that it hath happened whiles that, for the preservation thereof, men have been slain without any fault. If this much be conceded of the laws, which have in view the well-being of all mortals, how much more is it lawful for us, and whatsoever others, without offense unto any, to take such means as we may for the preservation of our lives? As often as I consider our fashions of this morning, and those of many other mornings past, and bethink me what manner discourses are ours, I feel, and you likewise must feel, that each of us is in fear for herself. Nor do I anywise wonder at this, but I wonder exceedingly, considering that we all have a woman's wit, that we take no steps to provide ourselves against that which each of us justly feareth. We abide here, to my seeming, no otherwise than as if we would or should be witness of how many dead bodies are brought hither for burial, or to hearken if the friars of the place, whose number is come well nigh to naught, chant their offices at the due hours, or by our apparel to show forth unto whosoever appeareth here the nature and extent of our distresses. If we depart hence, we either see dead bodies or sick persons carried about, or those whom for their misdeed the authority of the public laws, while they are condemned to exile, overrun the whole place with unseemly excesses, as if scoffing at the laws, for that they know the executors thereof to be either dead or sick, whilst the dregs of our city, fattened with our blood, style themselves pickmen, and ruffle it everywhere in mockery of us, riding and running all about and flouting us with our distresses in ribald songs. We hear nothing but, such an one is dead, or such an one is at the point of death, and were there any to make them, we should hear dolorous lamentations on all sides. And if we return to our houses, I know not if it is with you as with me, but for my part, when I find none left therein of a great household save my serving maid, I wax fearful, and feel every hair of my body stand on end. And wherever I go, or abide about the house, meseemeth I see the shades of those who are departed, and who wear not those countenances that I was used to see, but terrify me with a horrid aspect. I know not whence newly come to them. By reason of these things, I feel myself alike ill at ease here, and abroad, and at home, more by token that meseemeth none, who hath, as we have, the power and whither to go, is left here, other than ourselves, or if any such there be, I have many a time both heard and perceived that, without making any distinction between things lawful and unlawful, so but appetite move them, whether alone or in company, both day and night, they do that which affordeth them most delight. Nor is it the laity alone who do this, nay, even those who are shut in the monasteries, persuading themselves that what befitteth and is lawful to others, alike sortable and unforbidden unto them, have broken the laws of obedience, and giving themselves to carnal delights, thinking thus to escape, are grown lewd and dissolute. If thus, then, it be, as is manifestly to be seen, what do we hear? What do we look for? What dream we? Why are we more sluggish and slower to provide for our safety than all the rest of the townsfolk? Deem we ourselves of less price than others? Or do we hold our life to be bounden in our bodies with a stronger chain than is theirs, and that therefore we need reck nothing of aught that hath power to harm it? We err, we are deceived, what folly is ours, if we think thus. As often as we choose to call to mind the number and quality of the youths and ladies overborne of this cruel pestilence, we may see a more manifest proof thereof. Wherefore, in order that we may not, through wilfulness or nonchalance, fall into that wherefrom we may peradventure, and we but will, by some means or other escape, I know not, if it seem to you as it doth to me, but me thinketh it were excellently well done that we, such as we are, depart the city, as many have done before us, and eschewing, as we would death, the dishonorable example of others, betake ourselves quietly to our places in the country, whereof each of us hath great plenty, and there take such diversion, such delight, and such pleasance as we may, without any wise overpassing the bounds of reason. There may we hear the small birds sing, there may we see the hills and plains clad all in green, and the fields full of corn, wave even as doth the sea. There may we see trees 1,000 sorts, and therein is the face of heaven more open to view, the which angered against us, though it be, nevertheless denieth not unto us its eternal beauties, far goodlier to look upon than the empty walls of our city. Moreover, there is the air far fresher, and there at this season is more plenty of that which behoveth unto life, and less is the sum of a noise, for that, albeit the husbandmen die there, even as do the townsfolk here, the displeasance is there the less, insomuch as houses and inhabitants are rarer than in the city. So what I understand is Pampinea is saying, why are we staying here? Do we think that we are less likely to die than everyone else? Do we think our souls are somehow bonded to our bodies more than everyone else? Why don't we go out to the country? People still die there, but it's still better than the city. Here, on the other hand, if I deem aright, we abandon no one. Nay, we may far rather say with truth that we ourselves are abandoned, seeing that our kinsfolk, either dying or fleeing from death, have left us alone in this great tribulation, as it were we pertain not unto them. So they're saying that some of their relatives have already fled and acted as if they don't even exist, which is really, really sad. No blame can therefore befall the ensuing of this council. Nay, dolor and pain and chagrin, sadness, and belike, death may betide us, and we ensue it not. Wherefore, an it please you, methinketh, we should do well to take our maids, and letting follow after us with the necessary gear, sojourn, so stay today in this place, and tomorrow in that, taking such pleasance and diversion as this season may afford, and on this wise abide till such time, and we be not earlier overtaken of death, as we shall see what issue heaven reserveth unto these things. And I would remind you that it is no more forbidden unto us honorably to depart than it is unto many others of our sex to abide in dishonor. So she is saying that it is no more forbidden unto us to leave with honor than it is for other women to stay in dishonor. So I guess they're honoring their lives by trying to leave, if I understand correctly. The other ladies, having hearkened to Pampinea, not only commended her counsel, but eager to follow it, had already begun to devise more particularly among themselves of the manner, as if, arising from their session there, they were to set off out of hand. But Philomena, who was exceedingly discreet, said, Ladies, albeit that which Pampinea allegeth is excellently well said, yet there is no occasion for running, as meseemeth you would do. Remember that we are all women, and none of us is child enough not to know how little reasonable women are among themselves, and how ill, without some man's guidance, they know how to order themselves. We are fickle, willful, suspicious, faint-hearted, and timorous, for which reasons I misdoubt me sore, and we take not some other guidance than our own, that our company will be far too soon dissolved, and with less honor to ourselves than were seemly. Wherefore, we should do well to provide ourselves ere we begin. So, Philomena is saying that, women are kind of I suppose rash, and they don't make good decisions. They're kind of fickle. So obviously this is what they were taught from the time that they were born, basically. So it's kind of interesting to see women talking about themselves in this manner. It just goes to show how deep-rooted these beliefs are in our culture and in cultures around the world. Verily, answered Elisa, men are the head of woman, and without their ordinance seldom cometh any emprise of ours to good end. But how may we come by these men? There is none of us but knoweth that of their kinsmen the most part are dead, and those who abide alive are all gone fleeing, that which we seek to flee in divers companies, some here and some there without our knowing where, and to invite strangers would not be seemly, seeing that if we would endeavor about our welfare, it behoveth us find a means of so ordering ourselves that, wherever we go for diversion and repose, scandal nor annoy may ensue thereof. So they're saying if they were to go off without a man, it would kind of be scandalous. And, to their credit, they probably would be safer if they had some men around, in case there were other men who, stumbled across them and, tried to harm them or something. Whilst such discourse was toward between the ladies, behold, there entered the church 3 young men, yet not so young that the age of the youngest of them was less than 25 years, 25, and whom neither the perversity of the time nor loss of friends and kinsfolk, no, nor fear for themselves had availed to cool, much less to quench the fire of love. Of these, one was called Pamphilo, another Philostrato, and the third Dionio, all very agreeable and well-bred, and they went seeking for their supreme solace in such a perturbation of things to see their mistresses, who, as it chanced, were all 3 among the 7 aforesaid, whilst certain of the other ladies were near kinswomen of one or other of the young men. No sooner had their eyes fallen on the ladies than they were themselves aspeed of them. Whereupon quoth Pampinia, smiling, See, fortune is favorable to our beginnings, and hath thrown in our way young men of worth and discretion, who will gladly be to us both guides and servitors, and we disdain not to accept of them in that capacity. But Nephele, whose face was grown all vermeil for shamefastness, for that it was she who was beloved of one of the young men, said, For God's sake, Pampinia, look what thou sayest. I acknowledge most frankly that there can be naught but all good said, of which one soever of them, and I hold them sufficient unto a much greater thing than this, even as I opine that they would bear, not only ourselves, but far fairer and nobler dames than we, good and honorable company. But for that it is a very manifest thing that they are enamored of certain of us who are here, I fear lest, without our fault or theirs, scandal and blame ensue thereof if we carry them with us. So I guess she's saying that since she likes one of them and they like her, it would be scandalous if they were to escape to the country together, I suppose, I think. Quoth Philomena, That scaleth not. So, but I live honestly, and conscience prick me not of aught. Let who will speak to the contrary. God and the truth will take up arms for me. Wherefore, if they be disposed to come, verily we may say with Pampinia that fortune is favorable to our going. The other ladies, hearing her speak thus absolutely, not only held their peace, but all with one accord agreed that the young men should be called and acquainted with their project, and bidden to be pleased bear them company in their expedition. Accordingly, without more words, Pampinia, who was knit by kinship to one of them, so Pampinia was related to one of them, rising to her feet, made for the 3 young men who stood fast, looking upon them, and saluting them with a cheerful countenance, discovered to them their intent, and prayed them. So she said hello happily and told them what she was thinking, and asked them, on behalf of herself and her companions, that they would be pleased to bear them company in a pure and brotherly spirit. So Pampinia is saying, okay, accompany us to the countryside, but no funny business, I suppose. so they can feel moral about it, because during this time morals were very important. And if you were to try to, or if you were to kind of cross those boundaries in any sort of way, it would be pretty much dangerous, because you could be seen as like scandalous, and you could be outcasted. The young men at the first thought themselves bantered, but seeing that the lady spoke in good earnest, they made answer joyfully that they were ready, and without losing time about the matter, forthright took order for that which they had to do against departure. On the following morning, Wednesday to wit, towards break of day, having let orderly make ready all things needful, and dispatch them in advance whereas they proposed to go, the ladies, with certain of their waiting women, and the 3 young men, with as many of their serving men, departing Florence, set out upon their way. Nor had they gone more than 2 short miles from the city, when they came to the place foreappointed of them, which was situate on a little hill, somewhat withdrawn on every side, and from the highway, and full of various shrubs and plants, all green of leafage, and pleasant to behold. On the summit of this hill was a palace, with a goodly and great courtyard in its midst, and galleries, and saloons, and bedchambers, each in itself more fair and adorned and notable with jocund paintings, with lawns and grass plots round about, and wonder goodly gardens, and wells of very cold water, and cellars full of wines of price, things more apt unto curious drinkers than unto sober and modest ladies. The newcomers, to their no little pleasure, found the place all swept, and the beds made in the chambers, and everything full of such flowers as might be had at that season, and strown with rushes. As soon as they had seated themselves, Dionio, who was the merriest sprinkled in the world, and full of quips and cranks, said, Ladies, your wit, rather than our foresight, hath guided us hither, and I know not what you purpose to do with your cares. As for my own, I left them within the city gates, when as I issued thence with you a while gone. Wherefore do you either address yourselves to make merry, and laugh and sing together with me, and so far I mean as pertain to your dignity, or give me leave to go back for my cares, and abide in the afflicted city. Whereto Pampinia, no otherwise than as if in like manner she had banished all her own cares, answered blithely, Dionio, thou sayest well, it behoveth us live merrily, nor hath any other occasion caused us flee from yonder miseries. But for that things which are without measure may not long endure, I, who begin the discourse wherethrough this so goodly company came to be made, taking thought for the continuance of our gladness, hold it of necessity that we appoint someone to be principal among us, whom we may honor and obey as chief, and whose especial care it shall be to dispose us to live joyously, and in order that each in turn may provide the burden of solicitude together with the pleasure of headship, and that the chief being thus drawn in turn from one and the other sex, there may be no cause for jealousy, as might happen were any excluded from the sovereignty. I say that unto each be attributed the burden and the honor for one day. Let who is to be our chief be at the election of us all. For who shall follow, be it he or she whom it shall please the governor of the day to appoint, when as the hour of vespers draweth near, and let each in turn at his or her discretion order and dispose of the place and manner wherein we are to live for such a time as his or her seigneury shall endure. So she's suggesting that one of them will be like the chief or leader of the group for each day, and then at the end of the day they'll I'm not sure if she meant they vote or let's see, it says, he or she whom it shall please the governor of the day to appoint. So the governor of that day appoints the next governor. So they'll have like a chief so that they can entertain each other, I suppose, so they don't get bored. Pampinia's words pleased mightily, and with one voice they elected her chief of the first day, whereupon Philomena, running nimbly to a laurel tree, for that she had many a time heard speak of the honor due to the leaves of this plant, and how worshipworth they made whoso was deservedly crowned withal, and plucking divers sprays therefrom, made her thereof a goodly and honorable wreath, which, being set upon her head, was thenceforth, what while their company lasted, a manifest sign unto every other of the royal office and seigneury. Pampinea, being made queen, commanded that everyone should be silent. Then calling the serving men of the 3 young gentlemen and her own, and the other ladies' women, who were 4 in number, before herself and all being silenced, she spoke thus: In order that I may set you a first example, by which, proceeding from good to better, our company may live and last in order and pleasance, and without reproach, so long as it is agreeable to us, I constitute, firstly, Parmeno, Dionio's servant, my seneschal, and commit unto him the care and ordinance of all our household, and especially that which pertaineth to the service of the saloon. Surisco, Pamphilus' servant, I will shall be our purveyor and treasurer, and ensue the commandments of Parmeno. Tindaro shall look to the service of Philostrato and the other 2 gentlemen in their bedchambers, what time the others, being occupied about their respective offices, cannot attend thereto. Mysia, my woman, and Philomena's Lysiska shall still abide in the kitchen, and there diligently prepare such viands as shall be appointed them of Parmeno. Loretta's Chimera and Fiametta's Stratilia, it is our pleasure, shall occupy themselves with the ordinance of the ladies' chambers and the cleanliness of the places where we shall abide. And we will, and command all, and several, as they hold our favor dear, to have a care that, whithersoever they go, or whensoever they return, and whatsoever they hear or see, they bring us from without no news other than joyous. These orders summarily given, and commended of all, Pampinea, rising blithely to her feet, said, Here be gardens, here be meadows, here be store of other delectable places, wherein let each go a pleasuring at will. And when tierce soundeth, so let's see, what's tierce? There's a kind of a index here. Tierce, 9 o'clock a.m. Soundeth, let all be here, so we may eat in the cool. The merry company, being thus dismissed by the new queen, went straying with slow steps, young men and fair ladies together, about a garden, devising blithely, and diverting themselves with weaving goodly garlands of various leaves, and caroling amorously. After they had been there such time as had been appointed them of the queen, they returned to the house, where they found that Parmeno had made a diligent beginning with his office, for that, entering a saloon on the ground floor, they saw there the tables laid with the whitest of cloths, and beakers that seemed of silver, and everything covered with the flowers of the broom. Whereupon, having washed their hands, they all, by command of the queen, seated themselves according to Parmeno's ordinance. Then came viands delicately dressed, and choicest wines were proffered, and the 3 serving men, without more, quietly tended the tables. All being gladdened by these things, for that they were fair and orderly done, ate joyously, and with store of merry talk, and the tables being cleared away, the queen bade bring instruments of music, for that all the ladies knew how to dance, as also the young men, and some of them could both play and sing excellent well. Accordingly, by her commandment, Dionio took a lute, and Fiametta a viol, and began softly to sound a dance. Whereupon the queen and the other ladies, together with the other 2 young men, having sent the serving men to eat, struck up a round, and began with a slow pace to dance a brawl, which ended, they fell to singing quaint and merry ditties. On this wise they abode till it seemed to the queen time to go to sleep, and she accordingly dismissed them all. Whereupon the young men retired to their chambers, which were withdrawn from the ladies' lodging, and finding them with the beds well made, and as full of flowers as the saloon, put off their clothes, and betook themselves to rest, whilst the ladies on their part did likewise. None had not long sounded. Let's see, it has another little index. 3 o'clock p.m. So 3 p.m. had not long sounded when the queen, arising, made all the other ladies arise, And on likewise the 3 young men, alleging overmuch sleep to be harmful by day, and so they betook themselves to a little meadow. So she woke them up from their naps, took them to a meadow, where the grass grew green and high, nor there had the sun power on any side. There, feeling the waftings of a gentle breeze, they all, let's see, where did they go? They betook themselves to a little meadow, where the grass grew green and high, nor there had the sun power on any side. So they're in a grassy meadow, and it's not too sunny. There, feeling the waftings of a gentle breeze, they all, as their queen willed it, seated themselves in a ring on the green grass, while she bespoke them thus: As ye see, the sun is high and the heat great, nor is aught heard save the crickets yonder among the olives. Wherefore it were doubtless folly to go any whither at this present. Here's the sojourn, fair and cool, and here, as you see, are chests and tables, and each can divert himself as is most to his mind. But, and my counsel be followed in this, we shall pass away the sultry part of the day not in gaming, wherein the mind of one of the players must of necessity be troubled, without any great pleasure of the other, or of those who look on. So she's saying that in a game there's always a loser and they feel bad, so let's not feel bad. But in telling stories, which when telling may afford diversion to all the company who hearken. Nor shall we have made an end of telling each his story, but the sun will have declined, and the heat be abated, and we can then go a pleasuring, whereas it may be most agreeable to us. So she said, let's tell some stories. Wherefore, if this that I say please you, for I am disposed to follow your pleasure therein, let us do it. And if it please you not, let each until the hour of vespers do what most liketh him. Ladies and men alike all approved the storytelling, whereupon, then, said the queen, since this pleaseth you, I will that this first day each be free to tell of such matters as are most to his liking. Then, turning to Pamphilo, who sat on her right hand, she smilingly bade him give beginning to the storytelling with one of his. And he, hearing the commandment, forthright began thus, whilst all gave ear to him. And that is the ending of Day the First.